Hello, everyone. Really happy to be hosting the Business Keeps on Dancing webinar this week as Sean takes a break. We've got two very interesting panelists lined up to talk to you for our Stick or Twist webinar. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, great. Okay, I know that watching this today, there are many events and entertainment professionals and general businesses who, like us and our panelists, face weighing up different directions on how they should move forward. And we'll be discussing what to think about when you're thinking and pivoting and innovating and how you should make good decisions. So let's see who's with us today. If you could comment in the chat with your name and where you're listening from. Hey, Nelson, how's it going? Hello, Grace from London. Sophie from Brighton, hello. Amazing, Luca from Barcelona, hello. Great to have everyone here. So before I start, I just want to let everyone know that Business Keeps on Dancing will be taking a break as we prepare for a special edition of it, which is going to take place in a week or two. So stay tuned for our social channels for more info about that after this session. So our panelists today are FJ, who is the founder, investor, and growth coach at Hey Ho Let's Go, an idea accelerator company, and Andrea Moccia, senior producer from Secret Cinema, who produce immersive, globally renowned cinema experiences. Really excited to have them both here. Should be a really interesting panel. So before we go to the panelists, we're going to run a couple of polls to get everyone warmed up and find out what everyone is most interested in. So the first poll question is going to be: have you pivoted or thought about pivoting your business as a result of COVID-19? Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, so it's a good mix of people who are thinking about it and who've already done it. That's really interesting. Okay, great. Second one, if you were going to pivot, which direction would it be in? Okay, great. A really interesting mix there as well. Okay, and last one, do you think it's important for brands to work on initiatives that do good for the community? That is a pretty resounding yes for that one. Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, great. Well, I hope today's webinar will be helpful for everyone. So, stick or twist. Thinking about how to generate new audiences and new income streams is hot on the minds of many businesses out there right now, but particularly those of us who depend on mass gatherings. Many event brands are thinking about testing how they can launch virtual events and if it's possible to monetize them while donating to good causes. Others are launching merchandise and t-shirts in support of charities, whilst many are considering what B2C products their brands can launch that their audiences will buy in the future. There are many possibilities for event business at this current moment, and being in a business myself and someone who likes coming up with new ideas, often over a pint or two, it's often easy to come up with all sorts of new pivoting opportunities. But the hard thing I find is actually deciding on which ideas are the right strategies for the longevity of your business, and which ideas are the right ideas to put significant resources into when many of us face financial pressure. There are a few considerations to make in my view. Firstly, is the direction. In these times, our day-to-day strategies are evolving, but it's important for your team to have a clear view on what its ultimate goal and purpose on it is. What's its single reason for existing, and what does it promise to its customers, and how does it go about doing that? A really good example of this that I like is actually IKEA. And IKEA's mission is to bring affordable design to as many people as possible. Its motto is "we start with the price in mind," and its mantra is "for the many, not the few." Whenever IKEA is thinking of pivoting, they'll come back to their mission, motto, and mantra alongside their long-term goals and think about whether what they're proposing fits with this. So at Mustard, we've been thinking about new products and offerings recently. You might have seen our virtual event lab product that we launched this week. And our mission is actually to engineer exceptional moments. And that inspired us to create this product. And it seeks to create exceptional moments for our clients in virtual events. If you don't have an overall goal and a mission, motto, and mantra, it's worth trying to land on one. It can be very simple. If you're clear about what the goal and purpose of your business is, it's much easier to make good decisions. So secondly, using the right techniques to create and validate your ideas. So we're a big fan of workshops that encourage creativity, collaborating, and brainstorming based on facts that result in clear decisions and actions. One of the techniques that we use is a simple tool that I think is underused by pretty much everyone. It's just very simply evaluating different ideas on the basis of impact versus effort. The ideas which have the most amount of impact for the least amount of effort are the ideas that will drive your business forward. You can apply that to when you come up with ideas for anything. The third thing is testing, something which I've learned from researching innovation processes and from the approach of our paid media team is the incredible power of testing to save you a huge amount of time and money in events or any other business. So if you've got a new idea, before you work out everything, why not mock up a poster, a deck, or format of it and run it by some of your most loyal customers? Have a quick call with all of them, ask them all the same questions about it and review their feedback before you create the next iteration of it. You'll be able to save a huge amount of time going through this process. So right, let's move on to the speakers. First up, we've got Andrea Moccia from Secret Cinema. Thanks for joining us. So for those of you who don't know, Andrea is a senior producer for Secret Cinema, working at the forefront of recreating iconic worlds such as Doctor Strangelove, 28 Days Later, Moulin Rouge, Blade Runner, and most recently, he's been overseeing the launch of the brand's first international production as producer for James Bond Casino Royale in Shanghai, which sounds incredible. Hey, Andrea, how you doing?
Hello, Rob. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Great to have you here. I'm sure many of our viewers, like myself, have experienced the Secret Cinema world themselves, but I expect some of them have yet to have the pleasure. Would you mind starting by giving them a quick overview of the format of your physical events and how they normally work?
Yeah, no problem. So what we do is we basically bring to life the world of a film. So we will pick a film, we will take over massive abandoned or sort of disused spaces. And then we will recreate and rebuild the whole set of this film inside the building. Audience members buy a ticket, they get given a character, and then they come and play with the actors that we populate our world with. It's really about sort of letting loose and about rediscovering a sense of play. It's about celebrating a film, and sort of it's about having a great night. The evening is sort of split into two halves. The first half is the immersive section of the evening, in which you can come and play and sort of write your own story, as it were. And then the second part is the film screening. However, it's not your regular film screening. We will reenact sort of key scenes to live whilst they're playing on the film, and sort of we make sure the film spills out of the screen. So if, for example, you would have attended our Back to the Future event, the moment the DeLorean was on screen, sort of traveling to 30 years into the future, the DeLorean would be zooming past you in real life as well. So so that's the sort of high level view of what we do, if that makes sense.
That sounds incredible. I have to say that some of the Secret Cinema nights that I've been to are some of the best nights out that I've probably had. So yeah, it's an incredible experience.
Thank you.
Recently, you've been involved in creating the virtual event series Secret Sofa, which has seen you translate some of your most famous worlds into virtual experiences in people's living rooms. Can you tell us a bit more about how that concept works?
Yeah, so the concept was is a very sort of simple one. You know, it's building, as you said, off the success of past experiences. We've had a couple of titles in there which we haven't screened, but we thought sort of were topical right now. And the format of the event series is quite simple. So it lasts for 8 weeks. It's a collaboration with Häagen-Dazs, or our partners and sponsors on this. And on Tuesday, we'll announce a film, which is either a new film or one of our past loved worlds. And we'll send out sort of tasks, info on a drink that you might drink on the night, recipes that you might be able to cook, obviously an ice cream flavor that you need to buy for the week and eat, playlist, tips on what to wear, and you create your own sort of mini event in your living room. So the emphasis with Secret Sofa is really on the audience. We give you all the tools to create sort of your own pocket of the film's universe. Then on Friday, we go live on Facebook at around 7:30 with a couple of cast members who sort of spotlight and highlight all of the amazing creations that our audience have created during the week. Because these people, you know, our audience, we've got one of the most engaged audiences in the world, I think. They love to create, they love to dress up, and you know, so for Grand Budapest, which was our first sort of event of the series, which we put on, everyone was creating these beautiful cakes, and so we like to reward the audience for putting an effort by sort of spotlighting their creations and stuff. Then everyone goes and watches the film. You find your own link, your own way to watch the film. We don't actually sort of stream it or anything. And then after the show, there's usually a bit of an after party, which can be ticketed or unticketed. The sort of ticketed version is a little bit more complex. It will involve multiple actors, multiple Zoom rooms that you can go in and interact and sort of have your own little moments between audience, but also between audience and actors. And the unticketed ones are sort of more of just a DJ and having fun and sort of following and inspired by the mood of the film. So that's the sort of, yeah.
It sounds incredible. I'm looking forward to attending tomorrow. So how did your team come to make the decision that you should pivot to virtual quickly rather than waiting out the storm and looking at what opportunities there might be for events as we start to kind of come out of the lockdown?
Yeah, I think in general, sort of in our events industry, you can't really afford to wait out the storm right now, right? Like, I think if there's a time for professionals in the events industry to sort of come together and try to organize ourselves and sort of start to look forward and how we're going to be dealing with sort of the reality of events post-COVID, I think it is certainly now. So I don't think waiting out the storm wasn't an option really for us. In terms of the decision to pivoting, as I said, we've got this incredibly engaged audience, right? We've got this engaged audience who are eager to, first of all, receive content from us, but also to create content themselves. So we thought, how do we harness really the power of this audience, and how can we grow this community even at a time where we might not be having physical events? And Matt Bennett, who really sort of crafted the concept, he's one of the creative directors at the company. Sort of we decided to put on a forest party, which was a Stranger Things sort of 80s inspired evening. And we put tickets on sale, and we actually sold out there was 1,000 tickets, but we sold out in about 10, 15 minutes. So we obviously saw that there was also a sort of a large demand there for us to do something. From the party itself was sort of hilarious, and the actors who put it on were really, really brilliant. Everyone dressed in 80s outfits with, over the top makeup and over the top hairstyles. And so we said, okay, look, there's obviously an opportunity there. There's obviously a market for something like this. How can we develop this a little bit further? The opportunity with Häagen-Dazs then came along, and so it sort of all started to make sense. But yeah, as I said, I don't think that waiting it out, especially as Secret Cinema, a company like Secret Cinema, where we're all creatives, right? We're all and we all itch to actually do something and produce content and make experiences. It's part of our DNA. We can't really sit still.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And when you were kind of coming up with these ideas for new types of virtual events, was it clear that there was just one, this was how it should be, or were there a load of different ideas and then you picked one to kind of push forward with?
Yeah, the one thing we're not lacking in at CSM is certainly ideas. We're a company that we're an ideas driven company. We're constantly pulling out new formats, new shows, new ways of doing things. We're even with our events, we don't really follow a we don't really follow. Every time we try to do it differently. So there were loads of ideas there, and there are still lots of ideas which we're developing and we're hoping to push out sort of in the next few weeks. Obviously, we're all hoping for the situation to improve quickly, but we're planning for worst case scenarios. So I think there's going to be more things that you'll hear about in the future. And with sort of Secret Sofa, it was sort of an idea which ticked all of the boxes which we wanted to hit. Firstly, obviously, sort of engaging that community, as I said, but also we had an opportunity to raise money for charity and raise awareness for charity. We're doing this to raise funds for the Trussell Trust, the NHS, and other charities as well. But also to do something a bit fun and whimsical and silly, and not, we didn't want to take ourselves too seriously. We wanted to do something which, even someone who's alone in a living room can just slap on a silly costume, come on Facebook, really simple, really easy to access, and have a really fun night with strangers, which is something that I think we all long for. So it seemed to take all the boxes. I think, it's a way to bring people together and keep them really motivated at a really gloomy time, and so it made sense for us to do it. There's loads of I love seeing after the shows the sort of comments that go on social media, which got very on Twitter and that sort of stuff. And there was a post this week about sort of one of our audience members saying how it was hard for her to find motivation on a weekly basis, and she found motivation in Secret Sofa because on a Friday she had something to look forward to and to have fun, and something that she could prep for all week and get her hands dirty. And so it's when you see reactions like that, that's the best feeling possible.
That's lovely. That's very cool. You managed to get Haagen-Dazs on board as a sponsor, which is great for the business and a great match for the concept. Was it difficult to convince them to get involved with a new format that was unproven?
So our head of partnership is a guy called Alex Ward, who could literally sell ice cream to Eskimos. He is a genius at sales. So I'm sure he did a great job in sort of selling the concept. I think with us, we've got a great track record with working with brands, and we've obviously got sort of data and numbers that we can show to that. So it's never too hard to convince a brand that to come on board. We like to work with brands in a very creative way. They need to fit within the world that we create and to fit within the concept. So in Haagen-Dazs, we found someone that wanted to play with us and that wanted to sort of try something a little bit different. And those are the brands that we love to work with. I think. Sorry, apologies. So no, I don't think it was a difficult sell. Obviously, we've got a great asset in our mailing list. We've got a great asset in our social channels. So the results, you could see the results even by just sort of pinging an email out to our huge database and mailing list.
Amazing. And if you were going to give any tips for any other events out there to help them get sponsorship for virtual or hybrid events that they might be thinking about, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think obviously right now it's a market which is getting probably more crowded by the minute, right? So more and more people will look for sponsorship for these sort of things, and there's more and more events popping up. I think it's important for you to know who you are within this cosmos of new digital Zoom, Google parties. What makes you different? What are you offering which is different from other people? I think it's also important to know your reach and know your audience. Don't overestimate and be realistic with setting expectations. And I think it's really important also to go in and buy and have go in and have a really clear idea of the product that you're offering, right? The brand needs to know what they're buying into, so I think that's really important. I've always found that when you go to clients and where sort of with half thought through ideas, that's when they start asking difficult questions that you don't always have the answer, and sort of that's when you tend to make mistakes in over promising or that sort of stuff, because it comes from a lack of preparedness or insecurity.
That's some great tips there. Thanks for that, Andrea. As you've explained, your events are incredibly immersive, and most recently I attended the Stranger Things production in London, which was amazing. But one of the things I was really impressed by was all the pre-show comms being sort of led through the marketing into this online world of Hawkins and being allocated a character with a backstory, and it gave a sort of really rich, genuine experience. You've got the Casino Royale Secret Sofa coming up on Friday. So how have you been able to recreate the same magic pre-show for that virtual event?
I think recreating the same magic is difficult. I think obviously I'm actually a bit of a technophobe myself, so I believe in the power of people and the power of sort of meeting, physical, real beings. But I think what makes our events special is the team behind these events. Tom Mahler and Miguel Torres, who have sort of who are the performance directors and creative directors for each week, are brilliant, and they always come up with ideas. But also we've got some great performers, some really, really talented performers. And actually one of the goals that we wanted to hit with doing Secret Sofa is sort of giving some employment to freelancers in the creative industry who are effectively out of work right now. So it's about the people, and it's about investing in the people in the right way and giving back to the communities. And as I said, Secret Sofa is really about you creating your own magic. We put the emphasis on you. It's about the effort you put into it, and it's also a different kind of satisfaction I think you get. I think right now we crave for more than ever for shared and communal experiences. So there's a worth in even just pressing play at 8 p.m. on a Friday night and knowing that there's hundreds of people who are doing that with you.
Amazing. What sort of things have you had happening in the kind of different Zoom rooms that you've been having for the after party?
So last week was Moulin Rouge, which is one of my favorite events and shows and films, and it's a fun world. It's a fun, sexy, dangerous, illicit world. And we had four performers on it with 3 different breakout rooms, and one of them was a love room where you sort of went in groups of 4 or 6, and you got to meet and chat with other people and sort of start. It got a bit naughty. It could get a bit naughty in there because obviously we knew that everyone was 18 and a restricted number of people. I'm not going to share what sort of went on in the detail, but there was that. We've also had rooms in which you might do some life drawing, or we had a sort of talent show section, and so we choreographed a group dance for the talent show. So there's different activities that can go on. I think the aim for us is obviously to refine and really grow these experiences as the weeks go by. It's something that we certainly don't have any previous experience in creating Zoom digital events, but it's really creating a little bit of a weird TV studio almost, that the actors can run themselves. So it's quite fun. It's quite a challenge. But my phone just ringing. Yeah. So different activities in different rooms. Sorry about that.
That sounds amazing. I'm really looking forward to experiencing that tomorrow. I guess, you kind of touched on it, but one of the things I've always found with Secret Cinema is the willingness of the audience to engage with strangers, which you don't get in many other types of events. And how have you managed to sort of encourage them to engage with each other around these virtual events?
It's basically the moment we sent an email, we send the newsletter out, it's as if we light a fuse, pretty much, right? Our audience are waiting to create like no one else. So it's not difficult for us to get them to do this. And I think we put these shows on because we love film, and people come to our shows because they love film. So we are sort of giving them the opportunity to sort of live their dreams, live their childhood dreams, or stepping into a scene, or stepping into a movie, meeting a character. So it's not that hard for us to keep the interaction going. People want to show themselves off. People want to meet new people. People want to chat amongst each other. People want to get drunk. So it wasn't really complicated. We had this during this talent show. I mean, there were people that were doing some amazing things, magic tricks and card tricks and dances and splits and cartwheels. If you give people a forum and a context to interact within, you don't have an issue getting them to interact, I think. And you see it from the chat room, like with on this webinar, with loads of people asking each other questions and saying hello. There's a real craving for human connection.
That's cool. That's great. And you've been you've been charging for access to the virtual after parties, but not to the kind of taking part in watching the film. And you've had all the profits going to the Trust food banks and the NHS as you mentioned. How important do you feel it is for brands to be seen to be doing good for the community at the moment?
I think it's something that brands should always keep in mind. When we do our events, we always partner with a charity that is relevant to the show, but also we create a massive program that goes alongside the event of school workshops, work experience, work placement, shadowing opportunities, tours of our sets, talks with our heads of departments, collaborations with people like the Royal Academy, Royal Institution. So we with giving back to the community is written into the DNA of Secret Cinema. Really, it's something that we keep at the forefront of our mind whenever we go into our communities, especially because our events often happen in boroughs which sadly are underfunded or sort of have been suffering particularly from massive income inequality and that sort of stuff. So it's key, I think, in general, but it's even more important now when we're in a situation where everyone needs to help everyone, I think. So brands need to start. We've got loyal following in clients, customers, whatever you want to call them. It's time to give back to them a little bit as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's it sounds like you're doing some amazing work with good causes there. So great stuff. Do you see possibilities for more paid for online experiences over the next year?
Yeah, I think so. I think as long as there's a market, we will want to sort of keep on trying. And now that we've got these sort of templates of a show, we can roll them out quite easily. So I think if there's the opportunity, we'll wanna keep on doing them. I don't think that we will ever, they won't become a replacement for our regular events, and they won't become a standalone thing. But I definitely think that they can live complementary to the show. There's definitely a future for them.
Amazing. Well, thanks very much for that, Andrea. That was really, really insightful.
Thank you.
We'll come back for a few questions in the Q&A towards the end. Thank you. So yeah, next up we have FJ Rutjes. Welcome, FJ. Thanks for joining us today. FJ is the founder, investor, and growth coach at a Hey Ho Let's Go, an idea accelerator company. He's got a background in brand building, creativity, and innovation. And FJ focuses on getting passionate people further faster. He has an experience in senior leadership roles within retail, FMCG, healthcare, and medtech, and he's worked as an innovation advisor for businesses of all sizes, also with some of the world's biggest brands, including Innocent, Philips, Vitra, KLM, and Montblanc, to name a few. So it's fair to say FJ is somewhat of an expert when it comes to using innovation to pivot businesses. How are you doing, FJ?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Great to be here. That intro sounded like my mother could have written it.
Excellent. So to start with, it'd be great if you could put yourself into the shoes of an event business owner facing the restrictions on mass gatherings that we have now. It's difficult to know if you should evolve your offering into something virtual, as Andrea has demonstrated with us with Secret Cinema, go quiet, or think about pivoting even further into other areas. How would you approach thinking about whether or not to pivot your business, and is there anything you would avoid?
Well, that's a really good question. I suppose I would start by looking at whether or not pivoting is the thing that's most important for the survival of your business. If I may, I'll start by explaining what I see as a definition for innovation, because I think that's helpful to frame things, right? In my book, innovation means the commercialization of a great idea. We can talk long and extend about the word commercialization, but the point of it is that just having a great idea in itself is really not enough. You already made the point that sometimes you can have loads of ideas, but which of those ideas should you choose? So the question about whether you want to pivot should really also be anchored as to whether or not it will either help to grow your business or whether it should, it is there to help your business survive. So I see a lot of people at this time who are concerned about the question, should I pivot? And for some of those people, the answer is no, you shouldn't, because actually you can survive. Now, if I put myself in the shoes of a festival or event owner, I think this is the perfect time to pivot, because this is a perfect time to think about how you can innovate your offering in a way that, well, hopefully gets the best out of the restrictions that you encounter in festival and event organization. The fact that you cannot see your audience, interestingly enough, is of course a massive hurdle, but at the same time, everybody here on the call is in an industry that answers and appeals to some of the most fundamental basic needs we have, which is to gather, to feel part of something, to enjoy personal passions, to enjoy each other's company, to listen to music and be lifted by it. And those basic fundamental needs are never going to go away. So if you want to talk about pivoting your business as a festival or an event, it would really be about how can you answer those basic needs within the constraints that are there at the moment. And there's some easy routes. I think going virtual is an easy route. I mean, it's an easy decision to make. It's not necessarily easy to do, but it's an easy decision to make because you can, of course, still continue to connect with your audience. And if you ask me about pivoting and what would be on my to-do list, number one is pretty much also what you heard from Andrea, which is that you still want to stay connected to your audience, that they have a need to stay connected. And so if I was going to start up a little ideation or innovation project around what to do next, it really would be about how do we answer that question.
Amazing. Thanks, FJ. And if you had loads of ideas and you just weren't sure which was the right one to go forward with, how would you approach deciding how to move forward?
Right. So actually, I tend to give the people that I work with the choice of three simple tools. One tool you have already mentioned, which is effort versus impact, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about you, whether you have a team of 2 people or 150 people. The question remains the same. Can you do it? And will you have the impact that you're looking for? So using that as a metric to decide is really good. The second tool you can use to choose which idea to follow through on would be something that I call the Eisenhower matrix. I'm not going to necessarily spend a huge amount of time explaining it. I would very much encourage everybody on this call to Google what the Eisenhower matrix is, but it basically makes the distinction between things that are important and urgent. And if you have an idea that answers an important and urgent need or desire in your audience, that's a really good idea to follow through on. And then last but not least, And this sounds perhaps a little bit odd, but it's passion, right? Are you passionate about the idea? Because at the end of the day, innovation doesn't happen because people go through a certain process, or they go through certain milestones or stage gates or complicated things like that. Actually, it happens because of people. You heard Andrea also say, we're all artists and makers. You want to have enjoyment and fun in the idea you're going to put forward. And fun, in particularly times like this, if you have fun in the idea or the innovation that you're going to put forward, that's really infectious. And personally, I enjoy ideas that seem to be having an infectious joy or something about them that is very clear. If you look at Kickstarter, you can dig through the data behind Kickstarter ideas, and you'll find that actually the ones that are most popular are the ones where there are videos that explain the idea with real passion. So effort versus impact, important and urgent in one idea, or passion.
That's really useful for everyone. Thanks, FJ. That's brilliant. How do you think event owners can test new innovations or new concepts without risking too much?
Oh, this is really easy. I can just lean back and say that exactly what you said is the best way of testing it. I think often when people talk about innovation and about the choice of pivoting and how do we test an idea, people just think about this way too much. I always say, and you know this, is that it's easier to dial up an idea, scale it up, than it is to scale back down. So you can spend a lot of time trying to tweak and get your idea absolutely perfect so you can push it out to as many people that whether it's your mailing list or whether it's previous year's attendees. You can do all that. But the risk is that maybe they don't like the idea. And then you have to dial things back down, and that never works. So to your point that you made earlier, and I'm a big fan of that, it doesn't have to be perfect. Start with the seed of the idea. Share that seed with a few people that you respect. Ask them to bounce and build. I always apply the bounce and build strategy, which basically this. If I come with a fully fledged idea, you will become a judge. You'll either like it or you won't. If I come up with a 60% idea and I say, Rob, I need your help to make this a 100% idea, you're far more likely to join in and lean in. And the result is probably that my idea will be better. So don't spend huge amounts of time on making absolutely everything perfect. Don't try and aim at huge masses that you can test it against. Start small. Get a few people around. Make a little poster, make a little print, like you said. Maybe even make a small landing page that is remote and somewhere away from things. And you can point people there and say, what do you think of this? Does that have a good call to action? Can we do something with that? That's really how I would do it.
I totally agree. That's really helpful for everyone. Many events have spent a long time building up their audiences, and their audiences expect them to deliver certain hallmarks, much like we've already heard from Andrea. What steps do you think a business should take to ensure that those hallmarks continue through all of their projects?
Well, I like the point you made about you've got to make sure that it is that whatever you're doing, that it is not just embedded in your your brand, the thing that people see, that thin veil on the surface of what you try and project, but actually that it culturally matches what you stand for. And it's very easy, just like the example you gave with IKEA. If you're clear about what you represent, not just from a business perspective, but also from a company perspective. So Andrea, with the Secret Cinema, it's all about the passion of movie viewers and how they can immerse themselves in that world. Well, whatever you do next and how you pivot away, whether you go virtual or not, you've got to safeguard that. That isn't just a commercial decision. That's a decision about what you represent. The worst thing you could do is to come up with an idea, launch something new, and it's just being misread by your audience. Your audience will see it like, oh, they're just trying to get me on board. They're just trying to get me to pay for something. Or this isn't really what I have as an experience when I go and join this festival, whether it is outdoor, indoors. So really it's about be very careful that you don't confuse making commercial decisions with staying close to who you are as a brand.
Thanks. I totally agree with that. You've worked with some huge brands, including Innocent, Philips, and Vitra. What learnings can smaller businesses take from their approach to innovation in times like these?
Right. So I would say let's start with the good news, right? The good news is that generally these very large companies are pretty shit at innovating, and I say that because not so much because of the end result, but much more about the fact that they have long, sweeping processes. And sure, you know, in times like this, they'll try and cut back these processes to come up with something new. But if you are a smaller organization that is very much accustomed to try and figure things out, maybe even on the day, if you're a festival or an event, or there's 150 things that can go wrong on the day itself, and you will find innovative ways of working around them, thinking on your feet. That particular skill set of being able to think on your feet, that's something that, you know, you won't see that much in larger corporations. So there's a real advantage. So I would say that, you know, you should make use of that. You make use of the knowledge that larger companies actually are not that good in innovating, and that is because they have complicated processes. So that really leads me to sort of the next point, which is, well, what else can you learn from them? Well, those companies that are actually very successful at innovating have two things in common as far as I'm concerned. One, a really simple process around getting people involved in thinking innovatively. The second thing that they have in common is that it's quite easy to have the misconception that innovation is very democratic. And I make a strong point of this. It isn't. Innovation is not a democratic activity. Ideation is a very democratic activity. Everybody in your business should be and absolutely has to be involved in generating new ideas. But deciding which of those ideas to take, that often falls on the shoulders of a few people. And so what you find in bigger companies is that there are people who are willing to step up and say, do you know what? I will shoulder all the responsibility for this. So what can you learn from this? Well, on one hand, make sure that you get as many people involved from your organizations into thinking differently and generating ideas. But also be really clear that there has to be one decision maker who finally decides which of those ideas you're actually going to do. Don't confuse this with an exercise in getting everybody on board. If you are the owner of a company, if you are the managing director of a festival, it will still land on your shoulders to make that final decision. And you should be crystal clear about it.
That's fantastic advice, FJ. I think, I think also, many people might not always get involved. Every single member of their business involved in that ideation process, but yeah, having that advice on how to take those bigger decisions and who to take them, that's brilliant.
The other thing that I would say also, by the way, is that when it comes to pivoting, particularly in times like this, people think it all has to go super fast, but we actually forget that it isn't so much, making decisions fast that's going to make you nimble in terms of innovation. It is having fast decision-making processes. So it's not so much that, we're now going to dedicate 3 weeks of our time and condense everything that we can think of into 3 weeks. You know what? You could spend 3 weeks coming up with dozens of ideas, to your point, but still, it's the decision-making that has to be the fast part. And if you really want to pivot quickly and you want to make use of the fact that you've spotted something that nobody else seems to have spotted, it's all about the speed of decision-making, not the speed of having ideas.
That's fantastic advice. So something that I've noticed both personally on a national level is the scale and speed of innovation that's been driven across businesses and both government, which is amazing to see. And you kind of wonder why we don't all try and act at that speed in the normal times. But how would you recommend businesses try and keep that spirit alive and build it into the way that they operate?
Well, actually, one of the cornerstones that I would absolutely advocate, if you want to keep innovation alive within your business, when this time is over, do not put it back on that little pedestal where, you pull down innovation as a process once every 12 months. and you'll do it with a select group of people. You'll go away for a few days, and when you come back, you will have drank too much and had some ideas. That's usually how it goes in these kind of processes. Don't do that. Good innovation means that everybody in the business tries to get involved on a very regular basis in talking about how can we do something different, or how can we make our product better. So innovation has to be a continuous thing you do. And that doesn't mean every single day, but please don't make it something that you pull off in times of crisis like now. Make sure you do it on a regular basis. The other thing is, and this is just something that has struck me for many, many, many years, is that most companies, whenever a new recruit comes into a new company, somebody will sit them down and say to them, hey, this is the way we do expenses in this business. And there's a good reason for it, because otherwise, you'll end up with that kind of classic scenario where some people will send an Excel spreadsheet, some people will have literally a plastic bag of receipts, and some people will do something completely different. They'll say to the finance director, just give me a call and I'll tell you all about it. There's a good reason for it, because not everybody is that good at keeping their expenses, and if you don't tell people how to do it, it's not going to happen. When it comes to creativity, somehow we all presume that we all know this, and that whenever you throw people together in a room, then everybody's going to be on exactly the same page and know precisely what the process is, and they know exactly what they need to do. That is not the case. So if you want to keep innovation alive within your business, start thinking about how you make sure that everybody speaks the same language and understands the process.
That's fantastic advice, really helpful. So lastly, many brands are working on community efforts or raising money to help in the fight against the virus, like Secret Cinema are with the Secret Sofa, and there've been some amazing good news stories in lots of industries. How important do you think it is for brands to be doing good for the community at the moment?
So, first of all, I think it's really important. But what's probably even more important is the choice, the degree to which you are being public about that. I know of 2 companies who are doing amazing stuff and you'll never hear about it. And I also know people that are involved in amazing things, like I know Mustard Media is involved in a great initiative. So, and I know about it, I heard about it, and it's great, it's fantastic to see. My point really would be is, the answer is, should you do something for the community? Yes, you should. Should you talk about it? Well, that depends on whether it fits your culture. Is it something that is part of what you do? Is it something that will explain to others and explain to your everyday audience that this is really normal, that this is obviously something that your company would do? If that's the case, dial up the volume, share the great stories, because at the end of the day, by sharing stories like this, or by showing that you're willing to lead an initiative like this, you might actually encourage others to do it. So it's a fantastic thing to do it. But don't feel the need that you have to necessarily communicate it. If it's something that you can get involved in, and that, for example, the people around you, your teams, are excited about, that's what matters most.
That's really sound advice for everyone. Very, very good. Well, thanks, FJ. That was really, really great for everyone. We're going to do a few Q&A questions. So first up, we've got a question for Andrea, and this is from Jack, and he's asked, is there anything you tried to avoid when pivoting to do Secret Sofa, e.g. kind of not going off brand or steering too far away from your original offering?
Yeah, there's loads of things that we need to be careful about when we sort of started thinking about Secret Sofa. First of all, was how do we make sure that the product is of a good quality, which, the first one I think we brushed in half a day in terms of planning. So how that was sort of a key requirement as well. And then, as you said, it's how do we not stray too far from our original offering. And I think we managed to strike a nice balance where the Secret Sofa is quite silly in nature. People react very differently when they act online than when they actually are physically in a room with an actor and sort of face to face. But I think we managed to strike an all right balance. We'll see. I think only time will tell.
Great. No, I think it looks great. So one for FJ. Paul has asked, how can I make my team think more innovatively?
Oh, right. Okay. So first of all, going back to the example that I gave around, how do you do expenses in your business? If you want your people to be innovative, you've got to make sure that they understand what that means. Okay. So the example that I will give is that, I'm pretty convinced that my idea of an idea is different than Andrea's or different than yours. So the first thing we have to agree on is, what is an idea in our business? And the sooner you get to actually explaining what you think an idea is, and everybody agreeing, okay, so this is an idea needs to have these components and it needs to tell us X, Y, Z. That's a really helpful thing to do, because I find that getting people engaged is very often a case of getting a similar language and everybody's on the same page. So the second thing on how to get people to think more innovatively, well, in this whole kind of idea on innovation is a little bit of a trap. And the trap is that all ideas have to be brand spanking new and of the eureka quality. And actually, they don't. It's really rare that somebody comes up with an idea that nobody has ever thought of, that nobody has ever done. And so it's much easier to actually invite everybody in your team to just bring to the table an idea they absolutely love. And whether that's an idea in food or in music or in business, it doesn't really matter. An idea they really think, this is a fantastic business idea, or this is a great way of talking to an audience, or this is a fantastic advertising campaign. Bring them in and spend some time as a team unpicking what is the DNA of this idea. Because every idea that gets brought to the table is basically a tactical execution. So if you peel back the layers and you ask yourself, what's the principle behind this? And if you can then agree on that principle, you can apply it to your own business. I call that steal with glee, right? Just don't think that every single idea has to be off the spot. Ask people, what do you think is a great idea? And then talk about why it's a great idea, and see if you can then take those particular elements and apply it to your business.
That's fantastic. So Andrea, we've got one from Emily, and she's asked, do you foresee a future where events embrace more of the virtual side alongside physical, beyond the restricting being lifted?
I hope so. Yeah, I think the two go really well hand in hand together. Our events actually have a big digital component already, as you mentioned, Rob. The experience for the audience starts the moment they buy a ticket, and then they get content and websites and information on what to dress and how to dress and what to do, what to bring to the event. So it's a sort of compendium to the event itself. I think it's a really useful tool to communicate with your audience very directly, to give them instructions, and also to get feedback.
Great. Yeah, I think I agree with you, and I hope that people realise the potential of online to enhance their events moving forward. I think we'll certainly all still be doing video calls long after this goes on a lot more. So one more question for FJ. I think you kind of covered it in your answer a bit in the last one, but what does a simple innovation process look like for a small operator?
Right. Okay. So the process that I have basically put my faith in for the last 10 years is a very simple 3-step process. I call it capture, connect, and spark. So what that means is, capture means go out and get good quality insight. And insight does not mean necessarily data or research. Go and talk to some people. Go talk to people. Or if I was in the shoes of Andrea, go and talk to some of your absolute fans. Ask them what they're looking for. Ask them what they want. Ask them what they're missing. Talk to them. Not a huge amount of people. And when you look for great insight, it means you're actually looking for, not for the 99 people that say the same thing. You're looking for the one person that says something completely different to those 99 people that makes you go, hey, that's interesting. So that's the first bit. The second bit is connect. Connect means you take those insights and you connect them to real world opportunities. It's incredibly important that the ideas that the insights you've generated are actually connected to your business and what you can achieve. There's no point in coming up with a piece of insight that then means you have to completely reinvent your company. That's not going to work. And then the third part is spark. So that's the idea part. That's just generating ideas. And the reason why I personally really love this particular process is because ideas come at the end. And I know that as creatives, we are always dying to have ideas. But what you're really doing is you're making sure that the ideas you're having at the end are firmly rooted in the things you can do as a company and the insights that your customers are providing you. So insight means capture, connect, and then spark.
That's a great process. Really great process.
Actually, on that note, I had a quick question for Andrea. Andrea, I was wondering whether you guys, when you thought of Secret Sofa, whether you applied a completely different process to this than you normally would, or whether you just applied your normal process.
It was probably a combination of both. As in, we had to reinvent our normal processes. It was really interesting when you touched sort of before on sort of doing creative by committee and the necessity of sort of taking quick decisions, because actually that mimics quite a bit what the way we operate at Secret Cinema. There's a sort of everyone has an input, but then there's a limited number of people who actually make the decisions and drive them forward. And that was certainly what happened with this as well. It was particularly difficult because obviously we've had to also furlough a lot of our staff, right? So we were working with a less than skeleton team. So the nature of it was that we had to rework how we normally worked in any case. It actually became a lot more collaborative approach. What we found though is that was actually that in a smaller group of people, the communication sort of between teams was actually trickier than where we were a larger number of people.
Sure. I mean, I was just curious because, a lot of people think that you have to do something completely different if you want to pivot your business. You have to think completely different. But actually, if you have a good working process, you can still think about pivoting without having to reinvent your actual process of working.
Yeah, and I actually think that it's probably better for you to keep the same systems, because actually we're going through quite a sort of shock period, right? So if you manage to maintain some things similar in the way that you work in your company, I think it will really help also from a sort of psychological level, because I found it incredibly difficult, for example, to adapt to this new way of remote and Zoom working, and quite straining. So the more stability you can keep, I think the better.
Cool.
Fantastic. Great question there. Well, I think that's all the questions we've got. So that's the end of the webinar for today. But yeah, thank you very much to our panelists and everyone who's tuned in. As I said, we will be announcing details of a very special edition of Business Keeps on Dancing soon. So stay tuned to our Instagram at Business Keeps on Dancing, our Facebook group, which you can request to join. And spread the word to your friends and colleagues at businesskeepsondancing.com. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great bank holiday weekend.